Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining the call this afternoon to discuss with us a little bit about digital transformation. I know for many of you that's an ambiguous term. It's been around for a number of years, but constantly reshaping and changing meaning. And so hopefully today we can discuss that in a little more depth and hopefully bring some clarity to it. And beyond that, what are the drivers and technologies that lie underneath the digital transformation that we're experiencing now. Your time is very important, and we do appreciate you giving that time to listen and participate. We're going to work our way through the call today. I'm going to be your host. This is Nathan. I'll introduce a little bit more in depth in just a moment, but microphones will be muted as we make our way through the call. We will be recording the call for future reference if you want to refer back to it, or for others that were not able to make it today. But I will, at times, as we hand off between panelists and breaks throughout the call, give the opportunity to jump in and ask questions. If you have any questions as we're moving through the call, please feel free to put them into the chat feature of the webinar series. You can address those either to myself, Nathan Jones, or to the panelists. And I'll take the opportunity during those breaks as well to address any questions that come up during the call. So we have a panel today of three participants. I'd like to take just a minute to introduce those panelists. Stephen Jenkins is the Senior Director of ITS. Stephen's the leader of Diversified's Intelligent Technology Solution Division and has a little more than 10 years experience from engineering to pre-sales to business leadership, and has worked to build the organization that leads with engineering, but is very much in line with and stays attuned to business needs. And he'll be talking a little bit about digital transformation and how it affects business. Also joining us today, Mike Catrone. Mike is the CEO and president of the company Intelligent Visibility. Mike's had a number of experiences through entrepreneurship, starting companies, most recently Intelligent Visibility. He has given a great deal of leadership from the executive level, both service and software product development. A number of vendors that we're familiar with or may not be familiar with, but from a pre-sales engineering design perspective, as well as marketing, customer support. Mike holds 2 CCIE certifications in route switch and voice, and he's going to be talking about one of the very specific technologies that underlines digital transformation today. And as mentioned before, I'm Nathan Jones. I'm the Director of Sales for the ITS division here at Diversified. I've had a number of positions over the years, both in operations and in sales. Have led teams from both aspects, and of recent, the IT portion, networking, and the digital transformation has become more and more of a passion of mine. So I'm looking forward to talking with you today about it. So our agenda today, we want to talk about digital transformation. There's a distinct difference in digital transformation and digitizing a business. We've been digitizing business for 30 plus years now, but what does it mean for digital transformation? I like the idea that it's, like the process of a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's actually changing the way that we do business, and, that is enabled by technology. And what does that look like, and how do we do it? Hopefully we'll answer a little bit of that today. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of who Diversified is, and then also how digital transformation fits within the greater context of your organization. Followed by that, Stephen Jenkins will go into digital transformation a little deeper, talk about the differences between digitization and digital transformation, and what are the considerations as an organization that you need to have in place as you begin down this road, both strategically and tactically, and then also technically, what is it that's going to underline that? And there's a number of aspects of technology that come into play when we begin talking about digital transformation. And one of those, the key foundational element is the network itself. And with the advent of software-defined wide area networks, Mike's going to take some time to unpack that a little bit and talk about the difference between the traditional network and what is now known as the SD or software-defined network, and how that can enable an organization to meet the changing demands, requirements, and technology that's coming in at a breakneck speed. And then we'll finish up. I'll come back in and wrap us up and give you some information on how to engage further beyond this call. And again, as mentioned, as we transition between speakers, I'll give the opportunity to ask questions. So we'll jump right in and get going here. So Diversified is a company that is recognized in the industry for its expertise and leadership within technology, and that spans a wide array of technology, from audiovisual solutions to IT solutions that are more traditional in a sense of networking and data center and security and the like. And it's great to start off in talking about how good we are, but it means so much more when we see what the industry is saying about who we are and what we're able to do. Diversified is comprised of about 1,600 employees. We've got over 30 offices, both in the U.S. and internationally. We've recently expanded into the EMEA markets by way of acquisition. We have offices now in London and Dubai. We have 3 24/7 network operations centers that cover the array of technology that we install and support, and that take that down to the individual customer location. We have vehicles and on-site technicians that are constantly available and ready to engage with you at that level. And here we are. So Diversified is made up of several different specialties, some of which will be pertinent to today's call, some not. But just as a highlight, the audiovisual and digital signage, business consulting, media and entertainment, those are areas where we're absolute leaders in the market in terms of our depth of experience and customers, both domestic and abroad. Information technology, specifically the ITS I've mentioned before, is where we're focused from here. But what we're seeing as an organization, our growth over the years has been based on customer demand. It hasn't been just simply to get bigger or to do more. More and more, we're seeing that customers would like to see, clients would like to see partners in this, well-educated world that we live in today, where someone that can come in and help in all aspects, right? And so each of these specialties come together in unique ways, and we're finding more and more that there's overlap and synergy, if you will, between the organizations. And we're excited anytime we can get the opportunity to combine multiple specialties here and come up with some unique technical solutions for our clients and our partners. I want to take us through a little bit of a story as we start digging into what innovation is and what digital transformation is, and how it, what it means to your business. And starting a very long time ago, 23 AD, a man by the name of Gaius Plinius Caelius Secundus, also known as Pliny the Elder, he wrote of a goldsmith. He wrote a number of volumes about life in that time period. But he wrote a story of a goldsmith that made a plate of a new metal that was very light and shiny, and it was almost as bright as silver. And he touted that it was a secret technique, and he was the only person that could make it. Well, he brought it to a dinner for the leader of Rome at the time, Tiberius. And as excited as he was about the new product that he'd created, Tiberius saw it as a threat and actually did not see the value in it and beheaded him, right? Took his head off. for nearly 2,000 years, that product went away. But in the early 1800s, 1825 to 45, two gentlemen, Hans Christian Ørsted and Frederick Waller, began a process to, discovered a way to extract this very same metal again in a pure form, making it again available. Right, it had been there all along, but it was not available to the masses. And then in 1854, Henry St. Clair Deville created a commercial means of production for this metal and a way to extract it and make it available, but it was still very, very costly and in short supply. Fast forward about 30 more years, in 1886, Charles Martin Hall and Paul Herold, they discovered a process known as electrolysis, which used in the making of this metal, all of a sudden just created ridiculous amounts of it. Cheap, light, pliable metal. Perhaps you figured out what metal I'm talking about at this point, or maybe not. Talking about aluminum. Aluminum is synonymous with throwaway now. And, what does this have to do with digital transformation and what we're talking about here? For better part of 30 years, organizations have been talking about digitizing and taking processes that were before manual and automating them through technology. But this is more than that, right? This is more than what Pliny the Elder talked about, and even what the early creators of aluminum had in mind, right? It was not until it became readily accessible and easy did it really launch, right? And that's kind of where we are with technology today. With the proliferation of consumer technology and the uses that we have both in our personal lives and our professional lives, more and more and more people are looking to technology first rather than creating a process and then trying to figure out how to apply technology. And to that end, we have to find a way to make it accessible to everyone. And the modern organization has that same issue now. How do we make the network available in plenty and quickly and flexibly, or flexible nature? So another way to think about it is an orange tree, right? An orange tree grows, we've got plenty of oranges on it. We go to picking everything that we can reach, and all of a sudden we have half the tree gone, and now we can't reach anymore, right? And so it creates scarcity. We build a network now, and the network goes across the enterprises in multiple locations, whether in the U.S. or globally. We get it all built, but then we use up all of the supply. Right? What do we have to do to take it to the next level, right? And in the past, that's meant plant another tree, build another network, add more hardware. But perhaps there's some easier way, some small innovation that we can put in place that will get us to where we need to be, right? It could be simple, it may not be, but we want to kind of unpack today a little bit about this movement towards technology and what it looks like. I'm going to pause for a second before I hand the mic over to Stephen and see if there are any questions out there. So, Stephen, if you could unmute the mics for us, and we'll see if anyone has any questions so far.
Okay. Everybody's unmuted?
Yes, I'm unmuted. No questions so far. All sounds good.
Okay. Very good. Very good. If there are no questions, I don't see any in the chat at this point. Stephen, I'll hand it to you. Stephen, as introduced earlier, will take us a little bit through the digital transformation story.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody jumping on today. I know it takes time out of your day to join a webinar. Hopefully this can be insightful, and hope for some good questions here at the end. I look forward to answering anything that you may have, followed by Mike, who's going to be a great speaker after me, so don't drop off early. You'll be disappointed. All right? So with that, we'll get into digital transformation, and Nathan did a very good job of kind of teeing this up, right? So there's a digitization and there's digital transformation. So I'm going to take it a little further than that, right? So the digitization is basically companies have been invested in technology for years, right? So they bought the new widget, the gadget, or the box that they went to solve some type of problem, or possibly just because it was a new latest and greatest thing and they needed to take advantage of it, right? However, they didn't really digitally transform them. And so we're in the age now where digital transformation is taking that digitization that's available, but actually transforming your business. It becomes a business transformation as much as it is a digital transformation, right? So that's what needs to really resonate, is that the technology that's available really drives that business transformation. Got a few quotes here that I thought were really good, that the digital transformation is the application of digital technology to fundamentally impact all aspects of business. So, as we move in this direction, it's more of the lines of business that are increasingly being involved in asking for these changes or understanding how these changes are going to impact their daily business expectations. It continues to expand, too. So you have to be agile. Companies who are not agile are companies that really are getting left behind. I mean, you look at the disruptors out there in the market. Most disruptors today are finding a very innovative way of doing something that we've already done, but doing it better, doing it faster, and doing it more efficiently to really drive that customer experience. And so that's really what's pushing this along the path. SD-WAN, that we're going to talk about a little bit later, is kind of a current state. I'm also going to highlight here in a few minutes kind of where I see the market going and what's kind of the next real push as it relates to the digital transformation. So with that, we'll move on. All right, so transforming your business, right? So the concept is that the ability to digitally reimagine business is determined in large part by a clear digital strategy. So there's a little bit more there, but understand the word strategy, and I want to highlight that, right? So I'm a big believer as companies look to transform their business, they can't take it in a project-by-project basis. There has to be a clear, understandable goal, and I always refer to it as kind of taking a step back and let's paint the entire picture of how we want to transform our business. What are the key indicators that we need to accomplish based on what we're trying to do? And then you take technology and apply it to those goals, right, to transform your business. But if you don't take the time to create a strategy early on, then you don't really understand the entire picture. And therefore, you could kind of halfway digitally transform or maybe do a project that gives you success, but it really isn't moving the needle as far as how you're trying to make that shift into the digital transformation world. It's really trying to drive more profitability or more efficiency in your business. Also, it has to be fostered by the leaders and the culture of the organization. Leaders of your company have to be thinking about that next thing, right? I'll highlight at the end of this description here that I've typed out is that digital transformation is that risk-taking is becoming a cultural norm as more digitally advanced companies seek new levels of competitive advantage. This is really being brought into fruition by what Netflix did to Blockbuster, right? So taking a risk, doing things differently, and you have to understand that every company that's out there, there's a new startup, there's a new great idea, there's somebody trying to do it bigger and better or faster than you are able to do it by thinking ahead of where you're at. So you can't get complacent as a business owner today, and companies really need to have leaders that are thinking this way, and therefore the investment in technology becomes less about budget, more about innovation and differentiating themselves from the market today. There's a few little statistics down here at the bottom of how companies have increased market share, increased customer revenue, increased employee morale. And employee morale is something that has to be, not looked over because retaining good employees sometimes is providing a work environment that is better, it's more efficient, they feel like they're able to do things easier. I mean, everybody today is used to having their cell phone, and as a result of that, all the apps are consistently upgrading, you're getting new features, you're able to go Facebook Live at the click of a button and video broadcast anywhere. People are expecting the ease of use of a phone in business applications. So consumer products, a lot of times, are driving the need for business or digital transformation in your business based on what employees are expecting when they come in. Okay, move forward. All right, so organizational change, understanding customer demand and hurdles. So as we talk through this, this is just kind of a perspective to give you some ideas, and this may resonate with you, right? So organizational change, statistic here is some 70% of change programs fail to achieve their goals. So to unpack that a little more, that's really talking about the fact that there's a lot of good ideas out there and a lot of initiatives, but they never go all the way through to actually creating the goal of which they were trying to achieve. And I really feel like a lot of that goes back to the strategy, right? And the top-down strategy that the leaders in the organization must have a strategy in place to drive the digital transformation. The successful digital transformation will require departments such as marketing and IT working together seamlessly. A lot of times companies view IT as kind of this other segment of our business. They're a support organization, et cetera. However, as things become digitally transformed, it is increasingly required that IT is ingrained with every level of your business, because that they are the ones that's supporting and implementing the technology that is solving your business problems. When considering digital product, and enterprises need to understand what customers want. So the empowered customer is increasingly savvy and expects highly personalized experience. Building on that theme, there's been insights shared that research indicates that 73% of customers prefer to do business with brands that personalize their shopping experience, and 80% of customers express frustration when their identity and current actions are lost, then switching, right? So who is causing this, right? Well, none other than Uber, Amazon, and Netflix. That's really the ones that are to blame. So in many cases, by the time we have devised a perspective on how to respond to an opportunity or threat, the world has changed in order of magnitude, because it's no longer the big beating the small, but the fast beating the slow. And so that goes back to when I was talking about the digital transformation, everything on the previous slide, and transforming your business. It's not just big over small now, it's fast over slow. People are expecting a rate of change very quickly. The future's already out here. It's, people are already developing ways to displace you in your organization. So that should be taken as a note to really look at digital transformation and how you can move forward. I have a quote from Jeff Bezos, recent letter to Amazon shareholders, which he states, "Good inventors and designers deeply understand their customer. They spend tremendous energy developing that intuition. They study and understand many anecdotes rather than only the averages you'll find in surveys." So again, you have to understand your customer's demand, which in return will help you understand how to digitally transform your business in a meaningful way. And final, hurdles, right? So hurdles are always there in companies. Biggest obstacles keeping organizations from executing on their digital transformation is really company culture, resistance from managers, and inadequate budgets, right? So it must be a people first, but as I mentioned, from a top-down perspective of the leaders being the strategy drivers, then it no longer becomes a budget issue. It becomes a way to differentiate and disrupt the market, therefore allowing you to change. And so I just take that as saying, if you are a business leader, then great. But if not, have a conversation with your business leader. Get them on board to understand not just the cost associated with digital transformation, but how if you don't digitally transform, you're going to be one of those companies who's not relative like a Blockbuster in years to come. And it's not a scare tactic. It's just the fact of the world and how we live today and how things are changing. So move on. And finally, just to talk about a couple things here that are really kind of, I've said a lot of big picture stuff, right? And I've talked a lot about kind of theory and things like that, but just to drive home of some of the real things that are out there that we're seeing as we move into next year and the years moving forward, right? So analytics, there is so much data. Data is really becoming the new oil, right? So it's out there, it's available, it's a consumable. What can we do with it, right? So advanced analytics are showing up. You have IoT out there. There's sensors on so much stuff that can provide real-time data to make business decisions. This could be anything from monitoring the coolers in a big store or shopping center, or it could be something where you're measuring the level of something in a manufacturing environment to go ahead and execute an order so that you don't have to wait on that, to making sure that trucks are driving more efficiently, right? There's all types of ways that we can use analytics and data to really drive home a more profitable, a better business, right? And then as we increase the analytics and the data, now all of a sudden this new thing that I'm sure nobody's heard of is artificial intelligence, right? So jokingly, everybody's heard of artificial intelligence. Is really resonating, but it's able to turn the data now into actionable insights. That could be anything from enabling automation through chatbots and the ability to take basic IT functions and automate them to basically self-heal your environment, to augmenting human intelligence, right? So you basically still have the human intelligence, but it's just providing more key indicators and data so that a person can act in a way that they ordinarily wouldn't be able to draw that conclusion as quickly as they were before. And then the last bullet there is artificial intelligence is already a key driver of digital transformation. It has been. It's been working in insurance, manufacturing, automotive. So it's just going to shift the strategy to a customer-centric model as it moves forward. And then lastly is connected clouds. So, companies are seeing that, we said we wanted to go all public or we want to stay all private. Basically, you can't really go all in. It's kind of been the consensus in any way. You have to have a mix, all or both. So there's going to really be this shift in term out there called multi-cloud, and we're going to call it the multi-cloud movement. But basically, it means more than anything else, and no matter which workloads are being run in which cloud, the experience for IT and those that are utilizing applications needs to be seamless, secure, and streamlined, right? And so you have edge computing that's really taken off. All these things are going to work together. But at the end of the day, it's going to be providing an end user or a customer experience that they're able to access data faster and more meaningful, all while being secure, right? So you're creating an agile environment for your clients and your employees. Next. And so last slide here before we move on to SD-WAN, talking about legacy system security and kind of teeing up the SD-WAN discussion here. There's a lot of legacy systems out there, so don't get confused by thinking that, yes, you have these legacy systems, therefore you have to just rip and replace everything, and that's not really what this is about. There's areas to kind of renovate, if you will, or create that strategy so that you can phase approach this. The biggest takeaway is that companies need to look at and create that strategy of digital transformation. It may be a 1, 2, 3-year process, or it may be a 9 to 12-month process. Whatever it is, you still have to accommodate and account for legacy systems and then start modernizing them or adding to them or complementing them in ways that really make sense. But as you do this, you're increasingly putting more things on the network with IoT devices, audio, visual, just analytics in general, and data in general. Now security is becoming more and more of a top priority. It's constantly in the news. It's constantly being talked about. But understand that as more devices are connected, more data is readily available. It is essential that we're protecting those and keeping them safe, because every second there's a new day zero attack. And so, again, more than 55% of companies said that security was the #1 challenge they faced when implementing digital enablement technologies. But you can't let that hold you back, right? So you have to figure out a way as part of your strategy to account for the security as you're implementing this. It goes hand in hand. And then lastly, we have SD-WAN. And so SD-WAN is something that has kind of been talked about. It's a buzzword in the market, but as you're going to hear from Mike in a second, is that SD-WAN is really talking about as we have digitized and as we moved assets to the cloud, and we've talked about how to increase our spending in areas, but maybe decrease our spending and becoming more efficient and looking at as a service. All of a sudden now SD-WAN and the ability to look at data at the application layer to make very high-end decisions, which AI is obviously going to play into this story in the future, is that SD-WAN becomes a very strong story for a lot of clients out there, and it's something that if they're not looking at it, they'll likely be looking at it in the future. So with that, I will turn it back over to Nathan to see if there's any questions.
Yep. So while we're opening up the mics for questions, I'll read this one that came in via chat. So you mentioned disruptor and risk-taking, and do you really see that as the norm going forward, even in the enterprise and business environment that we live?
I do. I fundamentally do. I think risk-taking has been there today, and some of the biggest risks that's ever been, it's the risk-reward factor. I think that risk have always been taken by very intelligent, successful business people in the past. I think categorically how you classify those risks now are changing, where it may have been an investment in a certain area of your company or a new product or some R&D. Now those investments and those risks, those things that really just say, we're going to take a leap of faith here because our gut or the data that we have is driving us to say we need to be here, is going to drive these business leaders to make investments and take risk as it relates to transforming their business, just like the Ubers and the Amazons have been doing year over year.
That's good. Thanks, Stephen. The mics are open now, so are there any other questions out there for Stephen? All right, with that, we'll go back on mute here and hand it over to Mike to talk about SD-WAN and what that looks like. Mike, you're still on mute.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not. Thanks, guys. Got to work this.
That was going to be a long 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to talk about SD-WAN. Now, don't hold it against me, guys. I am an ex-New Yorker living in the South, so I do speak fast, so I'll try to slow down and, definitely ask questions when we get through this. SD-WAN is, like Stephen said, a buzzword that gets replayed over and over, especially in sales and marketing events. And what it actually is a technology solution that can help businesses achieve improved bandwidth capabilities in their network, improve and add intelligent routing to their network by way of, additionally with cloud strategies, AWS, Azure, we can have intelligent routing directly to those instances of VPCs, right? We also have the ability in many of cases that the way we implement the SD-WAN solutions with our customers' circuits, we're able to, in a lot of cases, reduce the operational spend by way of shuffling the types of circuits that we're using with SD-WAN that we can actually get away with. 15 years ago, getting into VoIP, no one ever did, anything VoIP across the internet, right? Today's a different story. We have, I guess first generation SD-WAN was iWAN with Cisco, then we had DMVPN, and then, now in the last 5 years, we have very intelligent software-driven cloud-controlled solutions, right? And what we're trying to solve is, a lot of people ask me, it's like, why do I want to do SD-WAN? Why do I care? Well, usually there are events that tie to the why do I care about it. Generally, you have a big, customers with WAN will generally have, routers, will have lifecycle management that might be part of the driver. They have MPLS circuit contracts that may come up, right? So that's also a driver. More importantly, the actual customer's cloud initiatives and strategies is one of the biggest drivers, right? How do I get to my VPCs? How do we seamlessly do this, and how do we operate it and actually, have this work for us and not just be something we're constantly, band-aiding and fixing all the time. So those are some of the what SD-WAN is at a very high level. And when we get to the end, if you have any tech questions, ask. This is going to stay high level. But, for the why SD-WAN, a lot of this will take consulting to figure out, are you a good candidate for an SD-WAN platform, right? And again, back to what is SD-WAN? SD-WAN can be delivered as appliance-based devices that replace, essentially your edge routers at each remote site and then the head-end site. There's also a virtual instance of those. And I'm manufacturing agnostic right now, but many of these solutions we've worked with, multiple manufacturers, have virtual instances of these edges that can sit at remote sites physically, in a virtual machine or hypervisor that can produce the same results. And what that's going to do is essentially you have these MPLS networks, and you have, at every single remote site, generally we have at least one, internet connection as well. So what we're seeing a lot of our customers do is, well, if I go into an SD-WAN approach and I basically maybe bring down my committed MPLS QoS, and I bring that cost down a little bit, and generally it's a slower speed, right? And I can go and get, some really fast 300 by 300 internet or fiber-based internet at the remote site. I can put them into either a virtual or a physical device for the SD-WAN appliance. And what SD-WAN will do is it will intelligently use both of those links as an aggregate to get, basically build your network off that aggregate bandwidth. So it doesn't matter if it's internet-based, it doesn't matter if it's MPLS-based, it doesn't matter if it's all internet-based. You may have, for example, a remote site with 2 internet circuits and a 4G tertiary link, right? Well, an SD-WAN solution can take all that into consideration, do latency checks to make sure that, hey, this one path is great. I'm going to send packets down this route. Well, hey, there's another link that's also good, so I'm going to send them both. And I've got a third link. It's great. I'm going to use them all, right? And then if issues become present, it will react quickly and reroute or send the flow per packet or per flow, depending on the platform, will send it across the other link. So it treats it as an aggregate bundle or virtual bundle of bandwidth to use. And again, many of our situations with customers, we have, and again, I'm going to take a step back. The cloud orchestration, the UI-based centralized management, operationally speaking, is very, very good for organizations to simplify their technical footprint, right? The technical debt, right? Why do I need CCNP and CCIEs on this, iOS XE or large entire, WAN to, work with BGP or to work with, certain platforms, whereas you can kind of centralize, that type of focus down to maybe a lower skilled team that allows your, senior people the ability to actually architect and stay on top of the newer technologies as well. So with that said, we're able to, give opportunities to customers that, say, for example, takes 5 to 8 months to get a new, MPLS service at a specific new site. Maybe we acquire, this customer acquires new sites on a regular basis or even quarterly. We could stand up, internet-based, cable access within 2 weeks in a lot of cases in a lot of markets. Bring your either virtual or physical edge device from an MPLS, from a SD-WAN point of view, up at that site. It comes up, talks to the controller, it's on the overlay, and all of a sudden you just brought that site up on your private network through the internet, access that you just given it. So with that said, you're going to ask me probably, well, how is that kind of working? Because you're talking about internet, you're talking about private MPLS. What is it actually doing under the hood? Well, effectively, there's no secret sauce to the technologies under the hood. It's, the device is doing firewalling, right, to protect the internet from the inside. It's doing a full mesh, VPN, IPsec VPN tunneling, setup between all the other devices in your entire network, along with the head ends, right? So it's forming what we used to do, DMVPN tunnels, right? So it's forming all this under the hood. But where the secret sauce comes into play, the ability to test and react based on policy in real time to events, throughout the network. So meaning I'm sending, packets down one path. Hey, by the way, this is a bad path now. Well, let me shift it to the other path. So with the intelligent routing capabilities, it really brings the SD-WAN solutions to okay, that's what it's doing. It's intelligently giving me policy routing that we've really hadn't had the opportunity to have before, right? With all that said, bandwidth consolidation, it's going to differ for each instance or individual instance of what the customer has for events. But just to kind of shift towards, cloud and the VPC layouts, right? So we have now this SD-WAN overlay network, what we usually call it, right? We can directly, those devices we talked about that are forming these VPN tunnels under the hood, right? It can directly connect to cloud instances of the manufacturer-specific virtual instance in AWS and Azure and give you direct access to your VPCs. So we call this backhauling in a lot of cases, but these technologies allow us to do that now and get out of the business of all these crazy VPN solutions with routing across those VPN solutions. So it just gives us a much more intelligent foothold technically to do this, right? When it comes down to the financial aspect of it for a lot of budgetary reasons and from business perspective, you can really, if you're, depending on what path you go down from a manufacturing point of view, you in a lot of cases, you're able to either turn what was a CapEx from an LCM point of view, lifecycle management, to an operational monthly expense. Some cases, for example, where you may have let's say 50 sites with MPLS plus internet. Well, you know what? I really don't need MPLS at half my sites at this point, or I can take my really expensive 100 by 100 MPLS. Let's shrink that to 30 by 30. Let me boot up, 2 more, 100 by 100s on the internet side of that each site. So cost effectively speaking, internet-based bandwidth much cheaper than private QoS-enabled MPLS. So we're taking that into consideration as well, is giving our customers an event situation to, be able to justify it from a business perspective. And I'm kind of going to maybe finally leave on the topic of carriers, right? So, for example, when we start talking about this SD-WAN overlay, it's basically a network that sits above the provided links, right? So what does that mean? Well, I've got, for example, let's say I've got 2 MPLS carriers in my network, and every single remote site has a different service provider for internet, right? Well, those guys will technically be what we call the underlay, right? So meaning that I can build this big, SD-WAN overlay network on top of that. Well, why do I care about that? So in the event that when and if certain contracts change over time, certain providers fall out of grace with you, you can plug and unplug and replug different providers underneath without having to wholesale, migrate, and just go through the pain of a service provider migration and back, from today moving backwards from 10 years. So it really gives you the ownership on owning your overlay network and then commoditizing to a certain extent the service underneath that's being provided, right? Sorry, Nathan, and I totally rambled off your slide, so you can go to the next one.
Yeah, sure, no.
Yeah, and I mostly covered all this already. Sorry about that. So, go to that last one. But what I was going to kind of suggest or talk about kind of on the tail end of this discussion from my point of view here, how do we kind of get involved, right? So, do I have to do the whole shooting match at once? Can we kind of try it? I mean, are we in or are we out? What's the deal there? So I'll kind of start off by saying you may have been approached by your current, MPLS or internet-based circuit providers to say, hey, we can give you free SD-WAN service as part of your contract. You may even get out of them, oh, yeah, we're using VeloCloud, we're using Meraki, we're using, Versa, whatever it is. Just to kind of let you know that if you're on somebody else's owned SD-WAN overlay, you don't own that, right? So once you're in, you're kind of locked in. It becomes very hard, and migration, kind of the pain of migration, becomes very, the reality of that, right? So kind of with that said, how do I get into it from a trial perspective? A lot of what our customers are doing is before we even talk about field trials, just how do I get into a proof of concept scenario that can really prove to the stakeholders in our company that this is a viable technology? You know, we may have crunched the numbers on the business side of it, and that's a different exercise. But how do I prove that this stuff actually works, right? So, you know, for example, what we do is we have a large POC set up, you know, out of our data centers here. We then work with the customer, for example, hey, I want to go ahead and get in this, you know, get into this proof of concept with you guys. Great. We ship you an edge device. We connect that edge device to our POC overlay. And then, of course, via, you know, whether it's, you know, it's a call manager related voice test or Skype business testing, we run through, you know, a series of multiple test plans that we can say, all right, well, this is what's going to happen when we lose the link, you know, and we go through the scenarios to show you how this is going to help your business, right? And at the end of the day, you know, how do we increase efficiencies, increase service to our collective customers, the customers of our customers, and how do we possibly reduce expenses, operational expenses while we're doing that? So generally that proof of concept happens before a field trial, and a field trial is, let's implement this at the head end in our network. Let's pick a couple of pilot remote sites to put on the overlay. Let's test it with our own applications, our own people, and start hatching a plan to do that and measure that and to run through that. So with all that said, Nathan, of course, I got off of all your slides, which I appreciate.
I think you covered all of it very well. You know, so Stephen, you want to open up the mics here for questions and see if we have any live questions out there?
Absolutely.
I know we've had a couple come in via the chat, but I thought I'd give everybody an opportunity to ask live before. The one question that came in, Mike, is related to the proof of concept. You talk about doing the proof of concept, but, you know, is this something that can be taken on in a phased migration approach, or is it a all in or nothing kind of a deal?
Yeah, so when you're talking about the proof of concept is really nothing goes into your live network as a customer. Basically, you plug it in, you know, we send you a box, you plug the box with a virtual instance, you point it at, you know, the internet, and it connects to our POC overlay. And then the quote-unquote SD-WAN overlay is the POC device at your location, and then the POC location that we have here. And then let's say Stephen and you guys down there in Atlanta would have access, you know, popping in the device into our overlay for POC testing too. So it's a reality-based proof of concept without doing anything in your network from an actual migration. Because once we get to a field trial, and I'm very careful, a lot of people throw a POC term around. Proof of concept is not a field trial. A field trial is, we're going to put this into your network, and you're going to run it. You're going to run through tests. You're going to get user feedback, but it's real life, right? It may be a controlled pilot field trial, but to be clear, that's a field trial. Proof of concept is when we can provide the POC fake environment from different locations, but so it's physically real, but it's no one's production environment. It is designed for, you know, doing internet-based SD-WAN overlay connections to whoever the POC participants are as customer base into us with pre-canned scripted demos in terms of quality testing, data testing. We do a series of iPerf tests to stress links, to do, you know, to see what happens when with and without. Let's do multi-source QoS with the SD-WAN overlay versus not. So a lot of the tech baking in aspect of it happens in the proof of concept, even before you get to the field trial. Because what we prefer is, if a customer wants to get as far as the field trial, we want to have the tech understood, the tech at a comfort level that's ready for the addition into my actual network at a limited capacity. So, but yeah, hopefully that answers the question, Nathan.
Yeah, no, I think so. Very good. And, you know, this question, I was scrolling back up here, I realized came in early on. You mentioned AWS and Azure.
Yes.
Can the SD-WAN solution be connected into the public cloud in that way?
So when you start talking about whose SD-WAN, you know, solution am I going to be looking at, the manufacturer is responsible for providing the virtual gateways, right? And that's what we call, you know, when literally Cisco or Versa or VeloCloud, they'll have their own virtual instances running inside of AWS for us to build into, right? So it just depends on the manufacturer, and it depends on where their gateways are and what service offerings from, like Steven said, from an application-aware kind of connectivity standpoint, right? Clearly, with AWS VPC or VPCs, you got AWS Link. With Google, you can do layer 2 extensions. So there's a lot of tech that's floating around. But from an SD-WAN overlay perspective, with the right manufacturer, with the right virtual gateways, your overlay can seamlessly connect to your AWS instances. And quite frankly, it can do the same for other services. So one piece I kind of left out by just talking too fast like normal was cloud-based firewalling. And if you haven't looked at it yet, I'm sure it's on your roadmap somewhere. So for example, Zscaler has a cloud instance service that, we would connect the SD-WAN overlay directly to, and it would do all of our, basically firewalling and intrusion prevention at a centralized or a set of centralized areas in our virtual, SD-WAN overlay network now. So we're basically taking the physical network and we're abstracting it up a level, and just it allows us, really at the end of the day, more seamless integrations at a lower cost to operate. In a lot of cases, you're getting more out of the service that way.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. We'll open up the microphones one more time just to make sure that, see if there's any other questions. If not, I'll remind all participants today, thank you as a way of thank you for joining. We've got a couple of opportunities here to get some free stuff. Meraki is one of the providers of SD-WAN coverage, and the link here, there'll be an email that goes out after the end of the call where you'll have these links, but the link here will take you to registration for a 30-minute webinar. If you attend that webinar, you'll receive a free Cisco Meraki MR access point with 3-year cloud management. It's about a $700 to $800 value, so great to participate there. Also, we'll be available after this, to do an ROI assessment on your SD-WAN. There's a lot that goes into play in terms of the systems that you have in place, whether you're using MPLS or broadband or what combination of the two currently, your contracts associated with that. But feel free to send me an email, and we'll get you set up for an ROI assessment on that. We can determine what it would look like for you from a cost perspective. And then Stephen touched on earlier security as a part of the digital transformation. We're continuing to try to get information out there to our clients and to the participants here. There'll be more to come on that. Look for some additional emails from us regarding security and how it plays into digital transformation. There'll be an opportunity for a select group of subscribers to get a security gap analysis on your environment. We look forward to that. And then finally, I'll put a plug in. Just earlier today, I was invited to be a guest panelist on an upcoming webinar that one of my peers within Diversified is hosting in a couple of weeks. Robert Cameron of the Mission Critical Environments will be hosting a webinar on the new science of predictive analytics within cybersecurity from an operations center perspective. This, in light of it being Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we'd love for you to join us. Again, we'll be sending out the details of how to register for that, but join me and Robert along with Kevin Yin on October 24th from 2 to 3 to discuss cybersecurity. Thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. Hope that it was a great information for you. And until next time, we appreciate it.